Alexandra. And also, I see I haven't yet sent you the link to my YouTube profile page.
Mm-hmm.
Let me send you that now so you
Mm-hmm.
can also see the other videos that I've recorded of
Mm-hmm.
my lessons with the
Mm-hmm.
other students. There we are.
Oh.
And that can
Mm-hmm.
also be useful for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could learn from those lessons as well. And also, that could
Mm-hmm.
help you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you see, um, normally when somebody asks you, "How are you?" the
Mm-hmm.
the typical answer is, "Oh, I'm very well, thank you." You see,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the usual reply.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm very well, because there's the verb. I mean, am the verb to be, which is being described by the adverb. So
Mm-hmm.
you are well,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to doing well, which is the verb to
Mm-hmm.
do, which is well. Now, I actually, to be a little bit different and original, because I like to be innovative and I like to
Mm-hmm.
say things original whenever possible. I
Mm-hmm.
actually answer them, "Oh, I'm good." Now, the
Mm-hmm.
Americans, they love that expression.
Mm-hmm.
When the waiter or waitress in the restaurant asks if they would like some more coffee
Mm-hmm.
or a refill of their drink,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want any more, they say, "Oh no, it's okay,
I'm
thanks, I'm
I'm
good."
good.
You've heard that
Mm-hmm.
expression, "I'm good."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But in
Mm-hmm.
fact, if you think about it, what are they saying? They're saying they're a good person. I'm good. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they're saying I'm bad, mean they're a bad person. They're saying they're good. But they're using that expression to mean that they have everything they need, that they're all right, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's brilliant because it's very positive, and being a Christian, uh, I like to concentrate on good things.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can, what we say is what happens. What we believe is what comes to pass. What we think
Mm-hmm.
is what occurs. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think positive, if you speak positive, and if you act positive, well, positive things will happen to you. That's one of the spiritual laws. You reap what you sow. If you sow the wind, you'll reap the storm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also written in the Bible, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. That's another verse of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what we say, think, and do will determine what will happen to us. Good things lead to good things to us, bad things lead to bad things happening to
Mm-hmm.
us. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather confess and say, whenever possible, "Oh, I'm good. I'm ever so good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good person. Like, I'm doing good things.
Mm-hmm.
And because that will give the opportunity for the Lord, for God to bless me and to really make me good because I'm
Mm-hmm.
confessing it, I'm saying it. And what you say is what comes to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was saying all the time, "Oh, I'm so bad at this and bad at that," now that gives opportunity for the enemy to really make you bad and even worse at the things that you're saying you're bad at. Because you see, God cannot do bad things, he can only do good things, just like the enemy, the devil, Satan, cannot do anything that's good. The enemy can only do bad things. Now, our words are very powerful in the sense that uh, life and death is in the power of the tongue. That's another verse of the Bible. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've heard of that verse. Have you heard of
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yes,
Yes.
I've heard. Yeah.
Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, those who exercise it will eat of its fruit, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
when you
Mm-hmm.
do exercise the tongue, you will then reap the fruit of what
Mm-hmm.
you've sown, of what you've said. So those words will have consequences and produce either good or bad, depending if your words are good or bad. And these are spiritual laws, spiritual truths. Now, it means that just by your words, you can bring a person either down to death literally, by demoralizing them, by that they're on the point of ending it all because they don't want to live anymore and committing suicide. So somebody's words can bring another person literally down to death. That's why there's the power of death in words. Whereas if your words are positive, a person's words that are positive, a person was demoralized, depressed, and discouraged, words can life and make to live fully again, to have hope in life, live life to them, and really live life well. And so, in a sense, you can save somebody from death and literally, in a sense, bring them back to a full life. Just your words, if they are positive, good, encouraging words. That is why there is so much power in our words. But the power doesn't come from us. The words come from us. But the power comes from the two forces. All the time, the forces are good or bad. You see that, Alexandra? Do you see what I mean? So you see, God can only use our good words when we say good words, and the enemy, the devil, Satan, can only use our bad words if we use bad words. So if we avoid all bad words and only use good words, basically we disarm the enemy, or at least we do not arm the enemy, because the enemy has already been defeated by Jesus at the cross, by the blood of Jesus, which conquered death and gave us the victory over the enemy. So the enemy is defeated, and the only power the enemy has is power if we give power to the enemy. So if we give a stick to the enemy to beat us, then of course the enemy will not hesitate to beat us with that stick. So we must not give any weapons to the enemy. And if we do not give any ammunition, because our words are like ammunition, to the enemy cannot do anything against us. And that is a spiritual law. That's a spiritual truth. So you see how important it is for our words to be good, so that God can use those words to bless us, rather than have bad words which the enemy can use to curse us. Not only us, but the people around us as well. So this is very important. Not many people realize that. That's why I always try to be positive and confess good things, including myself being good. Even if I'm not all that good, I still say I'm ever so good, because that'll make me better. God will actually make me a better person just if I say I'm good. God will actually make that happen. So you see how important that is, Alexandra. You understand? Did you know all these things, or did you realize just the extent of how important these things are before I mentioned them?
Well, I've been thinking about these things that you've just said.
Yes.
But I've been thinking about these things. Well, I think I'm a kind of person who tries to. Well, I try to speak about things, even negative things, in a neutral way. Even when I see something bad or something, when a person does something bad, I try to speak when I try to describe this person's actions, I try to use neutral language and
Right.
not to make things sound very bad when I speak about this person's actions. But my husband, he is very straightforward. On the other
Right.
hand, and
Yes.
he always speaks very straight, and he never
Right.
tries to use words, but he just likes to state facts. And
Right.
actually, I was thinking about this quality because he is also a Christian and a believer. So,
Amen.
but he sometimes I cannot come up to a person and tell him straight in the eye something
Mhm.
bad, maybe, but something that
Mhm.
that needs to be said,
Right.
really. But my
Okay.
husband, he can't do that.
Right.
And I started to think how these two qualities combine in the Lord's
Mm.
image in
Mhm.
his creation, because he created people with different characters.
Right.
And so some people are very straightforward. Other
Mhm.
people don't like to well, are very afraid to offend other people and
Mhm.
try to be very polite.
Did you say
The-
afraid to offense?
yes,
Because
afraid to offend.
offend
Offend.
is the verb.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
offend,
Yes, to
and
offend.
an offense is the noun.
Right. So, uh, so some people are so afraid to offend other people that they just never start talking on difficult issues, but
Right.
which actually need to be talked about and
Mhm.
spoken about. So, um, and this is just one aspect of the problem that you started to speak about, the problem
Yes.
of how we use words.
Right.
And so as for me, what conclusion I came up to is um,
No, you don't say came up to. What conclusion I came to?
okay, right.
What
Mm-hmm,
conclusion I came to?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because you
mm-hmm,
come to a conclusion.
mm-hmm,
So, because you
mm-hmm,
come to a conclusion, you don't come up to a conclusion, then you don't need the word up.
mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm,
it's like with phrasal verbs, there were some words that you can use in certain contexts. For example, if it's your name that's just come up, or your file or document, or your case that's just come up for review, then it's like if it's in a pile, okay, and the administration is dealing with all the different cases and all the different situations, and when it's your turn for your situation to be dealt with by the administration, then you would say that your case has come up before
mm-hmm,
the administration advisory board, and so it's come up, and then you can use the word up to make it a phrasal verb. It hasn't just
mm-hmm,
come, but it's come up. That means it's appeared at the top, at the surface of all the other cases.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
see that. That's when
mm-hmm,
you would use come up. But here you just come to a conclusion.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You shouldn't use the
mm-hmm,
word up in this case. Okay,
mm-hmm,
that's good.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Right. So I came to a conclusion that
Yes.
I need to use my language
Hmm.
to precisely describe my feelings. For example, when
Right.
I feel negative, I
Hmm.
shouldn't try to sound like I'm not. I shouldn't sound like I'm feeling well. For example, if my husband said something rude to me, and then he asks, "Did I offend you?"
Hmm.
Uh, and I shouldn't say, no, that's okay, that's fine. I feel good when I feel bad inside. So I
Hmm.
came to a conclusion that I should um, say what I really feel and think in, uh, even if it's negative, but I should
Hmm.
try to describe my feelings and my thoughts the way they are.
Yes.
Well, it's just one of the aspects of the problem that you touched upon. Um,
Hmm.
so and so I find it difficult to tell people what I really think, because I try not to make conflict, and sometimes I just don't speak, and sometimes I don't say what I really think, because
Yes.
I think that maybe I will offend this person, maybe I will sound too negative, uh, but I think it's not right. So I need to learn to speak my mind. But that's one point. Another point is,
Yes.
um, I think what you said about our words bringing life and death
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Is of course true in the way you
Hmm.
said.
Hmm.
Our words can bring a person down and make him
Yes.
depressed.
Hmm.
Um, and on the other hand, we can cheer a person's spirit up by
Yes.
making him by helping him see the bright side of things. But
Right.
in this way, I think the Bible is very true, of course. But on the other thing, I
You
think
would say
that.
on the other
the-
hand, instead of
oh
saying on the
yes,
other
on the
thing,
other.
it would be
Yes,
on the other
other hand, yes.
hand.
Hmm. Right. But on the other hand, the world around us can be very. It can be full of. It can be full of sad events. Can happen to us, and some things can make us upset and
Hmm.
feel down. And I think that uh, well, we can be made upset by a person's behavior when he's doing something bad.
Okay, let
And
me just interrupt here a moment,
Mhm, mhm,
Alexandra, because you're talking about twice you've referred to something that can make us upset.
mhm,
Now, obviously, we try to avoid repetition. Now,
mhm,
it is grammatically correct to say
mhm,
something can make us upset.
mhm,
So, but the more usual way, and the way that the native level English speakers would say it, they would say um, something uh, upsets us.
okay.
So it's actually shorter than something makes us upset because
Mhm,
we don't need to use the word make here.
right.
And of course, in powerful English, for the language to have as much impact as possible, we try to say as much as possible in the sense as we have to have meaningful words. So, in that sense, there is a lot of content and meaning in what we say, but we try to use um, as few words as possible. Now, if you can say a lot with
Mhm,
very few words, then your language is powerful and has a lot of
mhm,
impact. So that's
mhm,
where if you can reduce the length of your words and
mhm,
still say the same thing, but with less words, then it's even better. You see what I
mhm.
mean, Alexandra?
Yes, that's right.
And
Mhm,
also because of repetition, you said twice something makes us
mhm,
upset. Then,
mhm,
if you want to have the way that the native level English speakers speak by saying something upsets us,
mhm,
then you would use that as a priority to make it shorter. But if you see you're going to have to use it again, that expression, then you can start varying it and possibly making it a little bit longer, like your
mhm,
expression that you
mhm,
used, it makes
mhm,
us upset rather than it
mhm,
upsets us. just to avoid repetition, because repetition is also something that you should avoid above all, because it doesn't sound good. And the person who's hearing the repetition, it will actually make them feel a little bored and tired hearing the same things repeated over and over. So those are two things you need to be careful of, keeping it as short as possible and also avoiding the repetition. Now, I don't know if I told you about a mnemonic, KISS, to keep things
Yes.
short and simple. I told you about that?
You did. Yes. Keep it short,
KISS.
simple.
Keep it short and simple. So that's what, okay, I don't need to repeat that then. That's wonderful. Just remind me which languages you speak. You speak English, you speak Russian, and French. That's right.
And well, I think I can read in French,
Yes,
but I forgot almost all the words, so I need to be reminded their
of course.
translation.
Hmm.
And yes, I would love to revise my French a little bit.
Yes, we will definitely do that. So we'll use all those three languages. It's only those languages that you know or are studying at the moment. You're not studying or learning, or you don't know any other languages than those three: English, Russian, and French. Is that right? Just those three?
I Yes, I studied German for maybe just a year or two at
Mhm.
secondary school.
Right. And are
Um,
you interested in improving your German, refreshing your German, or not so much?
uh, well, um, uh, well, I think I don't have that much time right now, so
Ah,
I
it's
think
not
I
a
would.
priority. Hmm.
Yes, it's not a priority. I think it would be great. Well, English would be a priority.
Of course. And then
Mhm.
with the French as well, for you, that is sufficient. So English and
Mhm.
French. Okay, that's good. So coming
Y-
back to
Uh,
what you were saying. Sorry.
I haven't thought about French until you came up with this idea to read
Right.
the Bible verse, and
Mhm.
I got
Yes.
interested in this as well.
Right. Well, that's good. I'm really pleased to hear that. So, sorry to have interrupted you, but I just needed to explain those two things about
Hmm.
keeping it short and avoiding
Hmm.
repetition.
Yes, that's a
Uh,
very
s-
good point. Hmm.
Thank you. And as you were saying something about something making us upset, or rather upsetting us, can you just continue your line of thought there,
Hmm.
your train of
Hmm.
thought? Yes.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. And I think that when something upsets us, we need to
Yes.
be able to speak about it too, uh,
Yes.
in a way that is adequate to our feelings,
You
and
said a way that is, I
that
didn't hear
is
the word.
adequate,
Adequate.
adequate. Right?
Adequate. It's a way you pronounce it, which is different. You see,
Okay.
if I didn't hear it clearly as a native level English speaker, other native level English speakers would not have understood that word because of the pronunciation. So you see how important the pronunciation is, because
Mhm,
maybe they wouldn't have interrupted you just
mhm,
because they
mhm,
wanted to be polite. And that would mean that they would not have understood that particular word, adequate. So,
mhm.
but of course, as it's the context of a lesson and my job is to correct your English, that's why I interrupted you
Right.
and gave
Mhm,
you the correct pronunciation. Adequate,
mhm,
yes.
mhm.
That's right. Mhm.
Uh, right. So I think you'll need to use adequate words
Mhm.
to express your negative emotions and
Mhm.
feelings. And
Right.
I think that when we hear other people
Mhm.
speaking about their negative feelings and emotions, we also need to be able to understand them without
Right.
getting too much upset or depressed. Just being able to understand these people. And the other,
You wouldn't say too much upset. You would just say, um, and with that, did I mention about the words get, got, and gotten?
right, you did.
Okay.
You can say, I
Now
got coffee, I got,
that's
uh,
right.
mhm,
Exactly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it like the exam that I had in England, the use of English exam. And the phrase you said was without getting too much something. Okay. Now, here you would actually not need to use the word much. You would just say without something too. So if it was, I think you were saying too much concerned with, instead of that, you would say without getting, well, we're going to find another word for getting in a moment, without getting too concerned with, instead of too much concerned with. You don't need much in this case. It doesn't add anything extra, and it actually would not be the way the native level English speakers would speak. And it would actually sound a little bit, well, not usual English. It wouldn't sound like everyday English. So I'm sending this text to you, and much is in brackets because you need to avoid it in this particular context because it's not necessary. That's also a question of redundancy. Have you heard of that? Redundancy of words.
Redundant words that we need to avoid.
Avoid because they serve no useful purpose. They're just superfluous, as we would say. So here I put getting in brackets because I'm sure you can find a more meaningful word than getting. How would you say? Without, on the dotted line, on the when I put the three little dots, what word in English would you use to replace the word getting? What
In the
verb
phrase,
without?
Yes. Getting too sad, right?
So instead of getting, what other verb could you use to? Can you think of the verb that you could use?
So the sentence was when I hear a person speaking about his negative feelings and thoughts, I would try to stay calm and not to become.
That's right. That is the word we're looking for. Become. That's it. So instead of saying without getting, you could say without becoming. And that's what I wanted you to say. And you said it when you were giving the example of, because you changed it. First you said get, and then you changed it to become. So in this context, then become would be the better word to use rather than get. You see that, Alexandra?
Yes.
Now, what I can do for you is to send you a text, which is actually an exercise which enables you to practice finding substitute words to replace get, got, and gotten, which will therefore make it much more meaningful that your language will be high quality, richer. And so I'm going to send you that in the Skype chat again. I'm going to do a copy paste of that. So can you then, yes, you're welcome, Alexandra. Can you then continue what you were saying, please?
And also another aspect of what I was thinking about concerning the topic that you touched.
Yes. That you touched upon. Yes. You wouldn't just say the topic that you touched because we touch on something or touch upon something rather than just touching the topic. We touch on or touch upon it. So I've done a copy paste of the text that is the exercise with avoiding using get, got, and gotten. Can you see what I've just sent you in the Skype chat, Alexandra?
Yes.
That's good. So that can be for your homework, by the way. We don't need to do it now. It's quite long. And if you want, and then there's a link right at the bottom. It's thewritepractice.com with a play on words on the word write. It's written as in the verb to write, but it's a play on words on R-I-G-H-T. meaning correct when it's right, you see, as opposed to wrong. So the right practice means both writing practice and the correct practice, because it's the right thing to do, you see,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's the right thing to write.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have
Mm-hmm.
both examples of this word, which is pronounced right, but written differently. And even though it's pronounced the same way, it means something different. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the right way to write. So that is the right practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that link right at the bottom of the text I sent you, the exercise I sent you on get, got, and gotten is very interesting, and that you can also have a look at for your homework if you like after the lesson. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
that's great. So sorry to interrupt you once again. So you were saying, Alexandra.
Uh, another aspect of the topic that you touched upon is
Yes.
that uh, some people uh, who try to think positive, they really avoid.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Alexandra. You said think positive. Now,
Mhm,
think is a verb, positive is an adjective. So,
mhm,
what should you say instead of think
mhm.
positive? You don't say
Think
people.
positively.
Right, because
Mhm,
positively is the adverb describing the
mhm,
verb to think.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
that's good.
Uh, is that so another problem is that some people who try to think positively,
Right.
they disagree to think over or to think about mm, some um, some things that are sad, but that are part of our real life. For example,
Mhm.
my brother, who lives in the United States,
Right.
he uh, he he and his wife, they
Hmm.
often say that they try to think positively, but
Hmm.
my father, he often tries to talk to him about some bad things in his family life. For example, the fact that his children disobey him, that some problems that he sees in his life. For example, about the fact that the world is dangerous for a Christian, and there is a lot of sin and things like that. And
Hmm.
when my dad about death and
Hmm.
things like that, and my brother would usually tell my mother or my father that he doesn't want to think about this because he wants to think positively. So
That's
it's
interesting. That's a very
uh,
interesting situation. Yes.
right. So
Mhm.
my dad would tell me that he would prefer my brother to think about these negative things
Mhm.
more
Yes.
than
Yes.
just to think positively, because my father would like my brother to have a
Mm.
realistic view of life, and some
Right.
things like death are part of reality, whether you like to
Hmm.
think of it or not, right?
Of
So
course. Absolutely.
right.
Yes.
So
Very good.
I don't know what's the English word for. Um, Let me go on an online dictionary, and I want
Hmm.
um, to send this word to you that
Okay.
I need to describe my idea.
Yes.
Mm, just a second. Okay, this word is extreme. So,
Yes,
with positive thinking, you shouldn't go to extremes,
that's
maybe.
true. Absolutely.
So
That's
I agree with this positive
mhm.
thinking in the context of the Bible,
Right.
but right. Mhm.
Hmm.
But I
Yes.
disagree with I disagree with the extremes of
Hmm.
uh, not thinking about reality,
Of course.
some real things at all.
Yes. So that's very interesting what you're saying, and that links up with what you were saying earlier. So there's two things there. One thing is when you're not feeling well, or if you feeling offended about
Mhm,
something,
mhm,
to speak the truth about it, because we cannot
mhm,
lie as Christians, because that is very serious. That is very bad. Now, the way that I do it, and I suggest people to do it, is you need, of course, to be truthful and objective and say things as they are, just like your husband says. Of course, you need to say it with love, just
mhm,
like the Apostle Paul says,
mhm,
everything should be done with love. 1
mhm,
Corinthians chapter 13, the chapter about love. Okay.
mhm,
And also, if it is something negative, okay, you always need to end up on a positive note.
mhm,
That is to say, if you've had to mention something positive, for example, if somebody asks you, uh, do you feel any pain? Now, pain
mhm,
is negative. Now, if
mhm,
you were to say to the person, no, I don't feel any pain, that
mhm,
would be a lie.
mhm,
So you can say, up to this moment, right up till now, I have been feeling pain, or I have been feeling bad, or I have been feeling discouraged, depressed, negative, etc. Or I have been offended by something that somebody said.
mhm,
But now, by grace, I confess and I proclaim and I announce and I speak out that from now on, from this moment on, even though right up to this moment in the past, I've had all these bad feelings, this this offense, all of these negative things, which I
mhm,
recognize and I admit and I confess, have happened to me. But
mhm,
now, from this point on, this moment on, I am saying that Uh, now things are going to go well for me. I am no longer going to be offended. I am no longer going to suffer pain. I'm no longer going to feel bad or negative or discouraged or depressed. I proclaim, I state, and I declare that from this moment on, everything is going to go well for me.
mhm,
And so I am blessed, and therefore um, my soul is blessed, and just as it says in the Bible, everything prospers for me as prospers my soul. So when you're confessing the negative afterwards, if you're ending on a good note, even though you've had to deal with some negative things and mention and admit negative things, if you then end up on a good note, then you give the opportunity to God, for God to intervene in your favor
mhm,
from the present onwards into the future, from this moment on. And then the enemy is disarmed, because the enemy can no longer do all the bad things that the enemy was doing in the past, whether it was offending you, upsetting you, disturbing you, discouraging you, hurting you, or any of those negative things, because you are confessing that from this moment on, everything will go well for me, and none of the bad things that have happened up till now will continue happening, because from this moment on, it'll be only good things happening for me. And then the enemy can no longer do anything to you because you've said positive things. So the enemy doesn't have any ammunition to hurt you or to offend you or to discourage you or anything like that. But God, on the other hand, can then use your positive words that you've spoken after admitting that before it was negative. Then God, from that moment on, can use the positive words you've said to bless you with the good things that you have confessed, declared, admitted, proclaimed, and announced. And then it'll go well for you because God fulfills our good words, and the enemy will not be able to fulfill any negative words because you haven't spoken any negative words. You have mentioned in the past that it was negative, but you're saying that from now on and into the future, it will be positive. And if you say it in that way, you disarm the enemy. The enemy no longer has a stick with which to hit you, to beat you. But God, on the other hand, has the words that you have spoken with which he can bless you. So he then has the potential to bless you because it's basically everything that happens basically depends on the words that we speak. So those words are very important. So you're right about reality. We need to face up to reality. We cannot pretend that bad things don't exist. We cannot pretend that death doesn't exist, or disease, or the coronavirus, or we have to face up to these things, admit these things, recognize these things, talk about as being things that have happened up till now. So they've happened in the past. So you situate all these things in the past, not in your future, but always in the past. That is to say, it's ancient history. It's historic. It's happened. It's over and done with. But from now on, it'll only be positive. And if you do that, then only good things can happen for you. And you have avoided lying because you have told the truth, but you've ended on a positive note. Do you see what I mean, Alexandra?
Yes.
What do you think of that? Tell me.
Well, I was thinking about the example of Job.
Right.
And
some people call him Job, as opposed to an employment, a job position. Then we say Job usually.
Okay.
But some people call him Job. But just so that you know, if you hear the word Job, you know it's the person who's being referred to. You know who it is. Yes, who's being referred to. Okay.
When all these bad things happened to him,
right.
Said that blessed be the Lord's name.
Exactly. That's right.
And so the Bible mentions that he didn't speak anything bad about the Lord in his desperate situation.
Right.
But you see that though he praised the Lord in this situation, there were some bad things that happened to him before that, like his diseases and some other things. His health got worse. But even though this all happened, and maybe sometimes he even sounded very bitter, sometimes very often after those events, he sounded very bitter. But I think that the Lord saw all these terribly bad things that happened to him, and he didn't find him guilty of being bitter and very sad and depressed.
Right.
But he said he didn't sin in all this situation.
Right.
When he that so I think that the Lord saw his heart,
Yes.
and he saw that he was a true believer in his heart,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
he would take bad things as good things from the
Mm-hmm.
Lord. And
Mm-hmm.
so he the Lord gave him as an example to us that
Right.
on the one hand, yes, Job spoke good things about the Lord when
Mm-hmm.
all this happened to him. And I think that
Yes.
David, also in his Psalms, he also says a lot of good things about the Lord. In
Normally, you don't pronounce the P in front of the S in the word
Psalms.
Psalms.
Mhm.
It's usually a silent P, so you would say Psalms.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
hmm That's interesting.
In French as well. In French as well, you say uh, les psaumes.
hmm hmm
Yes, les psaumes,
hmm hmm
the
Right.
Psalms. Silent P. Hmm.
Right. So I think that uh, I think that even that uh, though you confess good things, and you can
Yes.
say that from now on, um, nothing bad will happen to me. You can say
Hmm.
that. You can confess that,
Yes. That's
but
right.
but uh, it's not in our power
Of
to
course, that is true as
right
well.
to yes, it's
Yes,
not in our power
that's right.
to stop bad things
Hmm.
happening in our life, right?
Yes,
It's only up to the Lord. So
that's
even if
right. We
if
propose, but God
right,
disposes. You know the
right.
expression?
So
Yes.
yes, so we can speak out good words, but even when bad things happen to us again, we
Hmm.
still should be faithful to the Lord.
That's right. Exactly. So don't forget that it says also in the Bible that all things work out for the good
Right,
for
right.
those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. And
Mm-hmm,
all is 100%. It means
mm-hmm,
everything. That means
mm-hmm,
not only the
mm-hmm,
good things, but
mm-hmm,
also the bad things.
mm-hmm,
And good God can turn a bad situation into a good situation.
mm-hmm.
And God can make good things come out of what apparently appear to be bad things. So
Right.
that's why we should always give thanks to the Lord, always
Mm-hmm,
praise the Lord
mm-hmm,
in all situations, in all circumstances,
mm-hmm,
because God is working his purpose
mm-hmm.
out. Like the
Right.
song of praise, God
Mm-hmm,
is working his purpose out as
mm-hmm,
year succeeds to year. So God is in the process of working things out and for our
mm-hmm,
benefit, in our favor. So
mm-hmm.
we may not always see it. Sometimes we have the impression everything's going, in a really bad way. But God is in control. It's all in His hands, and God knows what He's doing. So we don't always know what's happening, what's going on, but we do know the person who does know what is happening
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on. So
Right.
we don't know everything, but we know the person who does know everything, and that is
Mm-hmm,
reassuring.
mm-hmm. Yes. Right.
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted to ask you
Yes, of course.
to do for the next lesson if you have
Sure.
time. Do
Hmm.
you read poetry, Christian poetry? Do you like reading Christian
Of
poetry?
course, of course. I can't think of any that I've read recently, but obviously, I think in the past I must have read some Christian poetry. Do you have any good sources of Christian poetry, Alexandra?
No, I don't, and that's why I was going to ask you to
Hmm.
read some piece of Christian poetry for the next lesson,
Yes.
maybe.
Hmm. That would be interesting. So you're not talking about necessarily in the poetic books of the Bible, because in the Bible there's also poetic books, but you're talking more about something which is not in the Bible, but which is poetic and which is Christian. Is that
Yes,
right?
right. Hmm. Yes,
Yes,
that's right. Hmm.
absolutely. Well, I mean, just to give you an example, I don't know if you've heard of The Revenge by Lord Tennyson.
Hmm.
Have you
No, I
heard of
haven't.
it? Okay,
No, I haven't.
it's quite a famous English poem, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a classic, really, by a real expert in English literature, a very famous writer called Lord Tennyson. And,
Mm-hmm.
well, in the last few minutes of the lesson, before my next lesson,
Mm-hmm.
I can just give you an example of this poetry. So that will, so you can hear that we're talking, there are Christian references, and it's talking about God and referring to God in a very Christian way, in an exact way. So uh, I'm just going to say it to you here because it's something that I learned at school uh, off by heart, and I still have it in my head. And just to see what you think of this poem, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's
So it's
fine.
from The Revenge. So it's an extract from The Revenge by Lord Tennyson. And the night went down, and the sun smiled out far over the summer sea, and the Spanish fleet with broken sides lay round us all in a ring. But they dared not touch us again, for they feared that we still could sting. So they watched what the end would be. And we had not fought them in vain, but in perilous plight were we, seeing 40 of our poor 100 were slain, and half the rest of us maimed for life in the crash of the cannonades and the desperate strife. And the sick men down in the hold were most of them stark and cold, and the pikes were all broken or bent, and the powder was all of it spent, and the masts and the rigging were lying over the side. But Sir Richard cried with his English pride, "We have fought such a fight for a day and a night as may never be fought again. We have won great glory, my men, and a day, less or more, at sea or ashore. We die. Does it matter when? Sink me the ship, Master Gunner. Sink her. Split her in twain. Fall into the hands of God, not into the hands of Spain." And the gunner said, "Aye, aye." But the seaman made reply, "We have children, we have wives, and the Lord hath spared our lives. We shall make the Spaniards promise, if we yield, to let us go. We shall live to fight again, and to strike another blow." And the lion there lay dying, and they yielded to the foe. And the stately Spanish men to their flagship bore him then, where they laid him by the mast, old Sir Richard, caught at last. And they praised him to his face with their courtly foreign grace. But he rose upon their decks, and he cried, "I have fought for Queen and Faith, like a valiant man and true. I have only done my duty as a man is bound to do. With a joyful spirit, I, Sir Richard Grenville, die." And he fell upon their decks, and he died. So, obviously, there was only one or two references to God and to the Lord in that poem, but that gives you a little example. Is that the kind of poem you would like, or do you want it to be like much more Christian with many more references to God and to the Lord in the poem?
Uh, yes, it would be good if you could find poetry with more references
Mm-hmm.
to God.
Yeah.
And I was thinking what historical event this
Mm-hmm.
piece of poetry describes. Is it a war between Britain and Spain. And
Yes,
when was it?
that's right. War between Britain and Spain, maybe in the 1600s, something like that.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. Thank you very much. So,
Yes.
it describes this ancient event in
Hmm.
modern English, right?
Yes, in
Mm-hmm.
modern English,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in those days, they refer to God and the
Mm-hmm.
Christian faith and the Lord a lot. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why in older poems written a few hundred years ago, we do have a lot of references to God and
Mm-hmm.
the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
So I will see what poems I can find for you, and that will be interesting for next time. Talking about poems, there is a famous work of literature by John Milton called Paradise Lost. And that, of
Mm-hmm.
course, talks about the Bible directly. And it's a very famous work of literature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of Paradise Lost by John Milton.
I think I heard of it, but
Yes,
just only the name. Mm-hmm.
it's very famous, and I've studied that at school as part of um, my English literature class.
Mm-hmm.
So I can highly recommend that,
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra. So
Mm-hmm.
see if you can find that on the internet, Paradise
Yes.
Lost, and
Mm-hmm.
your homework, you can start preparing that. It is
Mm-hmm.
very high level English literature, so you may need maybe a dictionary to understand
Mm-hmm.
certain words. But as we're
Mm-hmm.
talking directly about the Bible, we're talking about paradise, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and their fall because they lost paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when they fell from grace, when they disobeyed God. And that's
Mm-hmm.
basically what it is. It's the story of the fall of man, the fall of Adam and Eve. And
Mm-hmm.
it is, of course, poetic. And I think it's called an epic poem. This will be a good poem that we could start with as our first text to study for next time
Mm-hmm.
in our next,
Mm-hmm.
if you would like,
Okay. Yes.
Alexandra.
Mm-hmm. That would be great.
Excellent. Hmm.
And I would like to have another lesson next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great. Just look in my schedule, what
Mm-hmm.
time is available on
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday,
Yes.
and that's fine. Any time that's available is good for you to book. Hmm.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, you're ever so welcome, Alexandra. Thanks you ever so much for the lesson, and
Thank you.
I look forward then to our next lesson next
Yes.
time. That'll be
Thank you.
great. Wonderful. You're ever so welcome. Take care.
Bye
Keep well.
bye.
Thanks a lot.
You take
Cheers.
care too.
Thanks a
Bye
lot.
bye.
Bye bye.